Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So let's kick this off. This segment is about building a zero waste future, and we have some amazing guests here joining us to share from different parts of the world. We'll be hearing directly from them about national and sub regional alliances and their future vision and what's happening in their regions when it comes to zero waste. So, with me today to host this session is my colleague Shibu, and I'm Sumana. We will be leading this session, and we have three great guests here who will introduce shortly. To kick this off, let me introduce Pierre. Pierre Gerger, who is the Director and Technical Supervisor for EcoSum, and he's a representative of the Mongolia Zero Waste Alliance. So Pierre's journey is as global as it gets. Started with environmental engineering in France, traveled the world, dived into international cooperation, and he has also co-written a book on food and agricultural policies. So a lot of varied experiences and a very interesting background that he has. And then he returned to Mongolia to team up with Nara and co-found EcoSum. And now they're turning all these great ideas that they've come across and discussed and seen around the world into real world solutions back home. Welcome, Pierre. And I'll hand it off to Shibu to take the next bit forward.
Hello, good evening and maybe good afternoon for people in different part of the world. And today I just realized, Sumana, that okay, we have three people from three different geographical zones. Two from the plateau, Mongolia is a plateau, and Bangalore is a plateau, and divided by the Himalayas with Roshan there. So let me welcome Vignesh Shivasubramanian, the National Coordinator of Alliance of Indian Waste Pickers. He is the National Coordinator of Alliance of Indian Waste Pickers, and Vignesh brings a powerhouse of experience from leading health programs at Hasirdala to managing data-driven projects for waste picker communities. He's also a champion for environmental justice and Dalit rights, working to uplift informal workers and make waste management both fair and sustainable. We are excited to hear Vignesh share how the Alliance of Waste Pickers is shaping India's zero waste future. And welcome, Vignesh. And the next up is our friend Roshan Rai from the Himalayas, from Zero Waste Himalayas. And now, the Roshan is joining us, Roshan Rai, who wears many hats as a member of Zero Waste Himalaya and Secretary of the Integrated Mountain Initiative in India. Roshan's work spans agroecology for small farmers, forest communities, water management, fair trade, tea, and the all important food waste connection. He is bringing insights from the mountains to show how local solutions can inspire systems change. Roshan, what a pleasure to have you to have in this platform, and welcome all again. Over to Sumana.
Okay, great, wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting and insightful session for the participants as well. So to kick off, we'll share some a question and request each of you to share your insights and perspectives given your the alliance that you work with and the background and the region that you come from. So to kick this off, perhaps we'd ask you to introduce your alliance. And let me start with calling on Pierre to talk about the alliance. Pierre, over to you.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Pierre. I'm here to represent the Mongolian Zero Waste Alliance as the representative of its lead organization called EcoSum. So we created this alliance with four other like-minded Mongolian NGOs who shared the understanding that we have strengths in unity, and also that zero waste is a systemic issue. We need to work together at some form of systemic level if we want to change things. So that's why we created this alliance. It's still quite new. We created the alliance last year, so I won't have much to report for, but I'll be happy to explain later the vision we have for the future.
Thank you, Pierre. Yes, a new alliance, but exciting and growing, no doubt. And we're really looking forward to seeing what the alliance brings and what can be done in the region with that. Thank you. And with that, Vignesh, please go ahead and share about the Indian Waste Speakers Alliance.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Myself, Vignesh. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Shivu. Yeah, thank you. So, Alliance of Indian Waste Speakers is a network of multiple organizations who are primarily working with waste speakers in India. So we work with around 43 organizations where 12 member-based organizations are there, completely led by waste speakers themselves. So we work in around 58 cities across India, and we have an outreach of about 1.5 lakhs waste speakers. So it's not that we have reached out to entire waste speakers community of India. It is estimated that around 15 lakh to 40 lakh waste speakers in India. So this is like a very small amount, even we haven't reached yet to 10 percentage of the waste speakers. But with our efforts and the member organizations efforts, we are trying to work with more waste speakers communities across India. So zero waste for us. So zero waste, when we taught, like even Gaia, when we are working with Gaia earlier as well. So when the term zero waste came in between the discussions of waste speakers, zero waste. Okay, if there is no waste, what can we do? Because waste is seen as a kind of livelihood for the waste speakers community. How can you say that there is a zero waste? Is something which came up. But then the policies came today. But the contribution of waste pickers in the zero waste is has been so long. So waste pickers have contributed very long back through different ways, creating values for the material as such, which we can discuss it later. So zero waste is something which has not introduced very recently, but the waste pickers are contributing towards the zero waste in multiple ways traditionally. Yeah.
Thank you, Vignesh. Yes, absolutely. Recognizing that while the alliance, there are lots more waste pickers out there who are not part of the alliance, but we're still growing, and they're a very strong voice, and it's wonderful that you're able to support and get their voices heard at different spaces, and we can talk a little more about that shortly. And Roshan, please do share about the Zero Waste Himalayas and what is happening, what is the alliance doing, an overview.
Sure. Thanks, Sumana, and thanks, Shibu. I'm Roshan. Good evening, everyone. Coming in from live in Darjeeling and part of the alliance called Zero Waste Himalaya. A very, what do you say, forward-thinking platform that was initiated in 2011. And interestingly, Shibu was part of that discussion. And 2011, very forward thinking, is also because it was trying to really highlight the Himalayan waste crisis, but also using the climate lens in 2011. So I think that's a very powerful statement. The reason to foreground the Himalayan waste crisis is that there is this tendency to over-romanticize the cleanliness, the pristine, and the so-called sacredness of the Himalaya. And we forget that waste is a problem. Definitely today we know more about it, but in 2011 it wasn't there. So it is an alliance of individuals as well as institutions and organizations across the Himalaya and people outside also, because there was definitely and still is a very important need to represent the mountains for its importance of the ecology and the socio-ecology of the Himalaya and the mountains as the third pole, the need to look at the waste from the waste lens, but also respond to the specificities of the socio-ecology of the Himalaya, which tends not to get talked about, foregrounded, or responded to at national and international spaces as such. It is a loosely held alliance, mostly in the Indian Himalayan region, but we do have friends across in Nepal and Bhutan also. And it is still a loosely held alliance taken forward from a very voluntary as well as a solidarity point of view. And I think our biggest thing that we've been able to do is do a lot of peer educator workshops and really strengthen solidarity and stewardship across the Himalayas as such. And then that brings people together has been the Himalayan cleanup since 2018, where we do a waste and brand audit. And I just looking at preparing for today is we've actually, since 2018, audited 1.2 million plastic pieces. And I can talk about the insights a bit more, Yeah, that's introducing Zero Waste Himalaya. Thanks for having us across. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all, Roshan and Vignesh and Mr. Pierre, for those background of the alliances you represent from different geographies in South Asia. So we have a vertical line from north to south right now. So I think people will be interested to know about more about the kind of how this zero waste is evolving, or like how much it is being accepted, or it is the potential for being say mainstreamed in your own territory. Ecosome is like Mongolia, from Mongolia is I think compared to the two in this panel, they are the new entrants to the Gaia network, though they are active in environmental issues in Mongolia for some time, and very closely watching the changes, and also part of the movements, environmental movements there. So it will be very interesting to hear from you, Mr. Pierre, on like what does the future of zero waste look like in your territory?
Yes, thanks. Zero waste is an idea that has been promoted in Mongolia for, I'd say, something like 20 years. But for a very long time, it was essentially understood that as individual practices, like in terms of lifestyle choices. And it was really focused on how each of us as citizens and consumer can improve our own behaviors. That's something that we specifically have been trying to change over the past years, this perception that zero waste is about individuals. We try to explain that, no, it's about the systems, it's about the political choices, the economy, and everything. So things are changing. I think more and more people have started to understand that, but a lot of work remains to be done. I'd say that the future is both dark because of the, the international context. Like we're all facing, I think, the same trends globally. So this obviously is going to be a challenge for zero waste, like for many other topics. But on the other hand, I'd say that there's also a very bright future for zero waste in Mongolia. And if I can develop a bit, I would explain the context in Mongolia. You've got to keep in mind that Mongolia is a quite large country, not as much as India, of course, but relatively large, with a very small population of 3.1 million people. It's the lowest people's density in the world. Half of the population lives in the capital city, which means that the countryside is not very much populated. Well, it's actually populated because people are scattered throughout the whole country. So you have villages and people living everywhere. But if you would be in your own village and you would want to go to the next one, you probably have to drive for an hour or 2 hours or more. This means that every community is quite isolated from the other. The size of the communities are going to be about a few thousand people, give or take, which means that it's quite a perfect condition for sizing and setting up zero waste systems. You can dimension and implement project quite easily with little interaction with the outside world, I would say. I personally come from France. You live in one village, you maybe work in the next, you have lots of connection with so it's quite difficult to implement a zero waste project, community, whatever. In Mongolia, it's much easier in that sense. So that's why I think I've always seen Mongolia as the perfect playground for bottom-up action. If you really believe in that, as we're always promoting, we should be bottom-up. Mongolia is a very good place for that. So for that sole reason, I really see a bright future for Mongolia in terms of zero waste, because there are lots of things that can be done. We can implement change very fast. Think about it: if you change 1 village, 2 village, 3 villages, is already 1% of the country. Then you replicate your successes in the surrounding villages, you get 10% of the country. I think it's one of the few places in the world where the local impact directly has nationwide impact, which is why I think we can induce good change. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Pei, for that update. Like it's bottom up kind of action needed, and I'm happy to see that this is kind of a good place to implement zero waste. Going to Vignesh. Vignesh was humble enough, like he was humble to say that, okay, we are just working with 150,000 waste pickers. That is only 10% of 1.5 million waste pickers in India. That number is huge, and this is the largest network of waste pickers in Asia. And he's coordinating the national alliance, and I think the things have been like in a kind of a change, and from the, like, if you look at the last decade. So how do you feel what is the future of zero waste, especially integration of waste pickers into the system? Where are we at?
So thank you, Shubhu. So continuing from the last conversation, which I said, so any zero waste future that excludes informal waste workers is neither just or not sustainable as well. So what we are also focusing is about the dignity livelihoods of the waste pickers as well. So waste pickers, when they enter, the entry point into this occupation can be anything. It can be a easier entry point. It can be a non-skilled job as such, but they are contributing for the longer period of time. So where do we see their mobility within this space is something we are also focusing on. So when we are thinking about a zero waste future, it should be people centered, the worker centered, and it should be decentralized. Is something which we are focusing on. Comparatively, through these decades, like in the last 2 decades, there has been multiple efforts and changes which is happening even at the governance level. Even the state is focusing on the ground. There are many challenges that we can discuss later, but there is a hope for a change, and there is a future we can see for the zero waste through the community's lens. So it's not, when we consider zero waste, it's not just about reducing the waste to enter into the landfills. So we are also focusing on the source segregations, decentralized recycling mechanisms, and strengthening the existing informal recycling sectors as such, where the informal workers are contributing at a huge level. To say mostly the waste pickers across this land. It can be a seasonal migrants where they are coming from. It can be anyone, but a particular set of population is contributing this cause at any cost. There are recent studies which even says that 83 crores, 830 millions is saved for the local bodies in Bangalore because of the contribution of waste pickers. Rather than waste ending up in landfill, the transportation costs, there are multiple other factors. I would be happy to share that article as well. But there are studies which speaks about the contribution of waste pickers. So how can we integrate them when they are already contributing informally into this zero waste future is something which we have to focus on. So India already has a functional recycling ecosystem driven by informal waste pickers. So zero waste is something which cannot be or which is imported. It is already existing in the hands of waste pickers. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Vignesh, for those numbers, because these numbers does matter. Yeah, when you say it is 830 million Indian rupees, that is something close to or just more than 1 million US dollars. That is the savings the informal sector workers saved for a city like Bangalore in southern part of India. So that tells everything about the kind of the importance or the relevance of the informal sector in solid waste management. So I'll just move to Roshan on the Himalayas. Like it is, though we say it's a Himalayan, the zero waste Himalaya network. Within Himalaya, there is the diversity is there. The geopolitical scenario is also different. The environmental issues is also like a different, and it's a kind of a complicated area with so many things when it comes to governance on waste management as well. So how do you see that zero waste? What is the space for zero waste in the Himalayas?
Thanks, Shibu. Like, perfect question, because like I think you kind of set the context. I was about to say I have to explain a bit of the context. It's very challenging to say I represent the Himalaya because it's so diverse. It's definitely thinly populated compared to the rest of India or other countries as such. But like, it's a very diverse social ecology, both from the physical side as well as the community side. The diversity that is there is immense. Also, in some sense, the other context is geopolitically, we've kind of the region has been marginalized. So from a waste point of view, uh, it has been great that not much has come up, but the amount of waste that has come up in the past 20, 30 years is huge. And when I say come up, it's literally traveling up the plains, right? Because of regional marginalization, industrialization was kind of slow. But having said that, just wanted to give a couple of context in terms of the Himalayan cleanup, where we audited from 2018, 1.2 million pieces of plastic. Is like pretty much 70% plus of them are non-recyclable. Then a lot of them are recyclable but cannot be connected because of difficulty of collection, aggregation, taking it to recycling units which are in the plains. And I kind of question the notion of recycling there. 80% of it tends to be food and beverage packaging, and mostly non-recyclable. And then to add it all, also there is an addition of tourism, waste coming out of tourism, as well as religious, in some sense, pilgrimages and tourism. So that's kind of the context. So in that sense, and then the fact that because we are sparsely populated, and technology that is not appropriate, and resources allocation that not sufficient for the region. So having said that, zero waste is the perfect solution in some sense, because of the social ecology and the exclusion. We still have a diversity of food cultures, as well as markets that are still unpackaged, unprocessed, and locally sourced. And that, I think, is huge. And the fact that we are challenged with linkages means we have to kind of locate ourselves within our region. So there is a bright future for zero waste, but there is also a darkness, because there is a lot of false solutions being promoted. Waste to energy for the mountains is a huge problem, incineration, and also the fact that waste management seems to be understood from an urban perspective only. It is everywhere, and the issues are like, as rural, as biodiverse as possible. So I think that's where I'd like to kind of place it, that it is important to look at it, and it is the real solution for the mountains. And it also intersects with climate, biodiversity, and ultimately food and nutrition security also, because like I said, plastic and oil is the same, and it also tourism sites tend to be in biodiverse regions, upsetting rich indigenous or like endemic biodiversity. And finally, if all of us are eating more and more ultra processed food, beverage that are hyperplastic package, means it is upsetting our own physical and mental well-being. So it also intersects with food and biodiversity and climate and nutrition security as such. So I think we have traditional systems that are already in place that are zero waste, and it just needs more focus. But having said that, global and national pressures of end of pipeline solutions that are not real, that are false, I think threatens our very fragile social ecology also. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you, Roshan. Over to Sumana.
Thank you, all three of you, for that. Yes, there are various things which I think there are common threads in what you talked about, and also there's the unique feature of different parts of the world that of South Asia that you represent. With I think Bangalore, the urban scenario and the setup there being quite different from what Roshan is talking about from the mountains, and Mongolia, of course, again high altitude but sparsely populated, very, very different sort of scenario in many ways. So what we'd like to also invite you to discuss next and share would be, how do you see the role of the alliance now? What shape is it taking, and what do you see going forward for the alliance itself in the next few years? Pierre?
Yeah, thanks. The main role of the alliance, well, there's several aspects of it, but one of the roles would be to bring some coordination amongst the organizations that work towards zero waste. We've all come to the conclusion that we need to better integrate what we do and harmonize some of our messages. And so that there was we felt the need to coordinate ourselves better. That's one aspect of it. Something related to that is to strengthen and build capacity among each other. Like some of us may be stronger on one aspect or the other, and we felt that together we could be we could better understand every aspect of zero waste in Mongolia and empower each other. So there was really this idea that together we could really help each other and be stronger. And also related to that, there's the fundamental goal of this alliance is to be much stronger on the advocacy side, because most of us as members, as organizations, we are relatively strong for the field work. We Ecosum mainly work in the countryside. We have now gained some recognition and have some impact and influence in the countryside. And we've been trying to advocate for policy change at the national level. But again, if it's just our own organization and each organization is trying to share some messages, even if those messages align, we believe that it's much stronger if we really speak with one voice, the voice of the alliance that represents all its members. So that's really the overall goal, is to centralize for the national level, despite of what all the members are doing on the ground in their areas. We have one organization that aims to speak for all of its members. That's the main goal.
Could you also just remind us of the scale? Because I think in your particular context, Mongolia, I mean, again, you were talking about how sparsely populated, but it's also a vast area. So when we're talking about the alliance, that's how many groups out there, or how many, how many people in the network, and how scattered are you guys? And because that must be hard as well.
Yeah. Well, like I said at the beginning, we're still a very small and young alliance. So now we have 5 members only. We voluntarily created something small at the beginning because, as I also mentioned, there are different understandings of the word zero waste. Many people still understand it as something individual. Some others, we don't have the same views and different kinds of full solution and everything. So what we wanted it was to create something that we can set clear direction from the beginning without having to debate about what zero waste really means. No, okay, there are definitions within the global movement. We want those definitions. So we decided to start with the few organizations that were really at the initiative of that. So we're essentially still at that point, because now the next phase will be to gain in legitimacy and visibility, to bring towards that direction other organizations. In terms of geography, 2 of us are based in the countryside, 3 are based in the capital city. And if I speak for Ecosum, we are working in 15 different villages the most actively. We're also working in other places out of 300 something. So as I said, small population, small number of... So if you take from the smallest villages to the capital city, we're only 330 something municipalities. So we are actively working in 15 of them, which is already a quite good percentage. Many other villages have been contacting us, but it's difficult to work everywhere at the same time, right? So in terms of geography, we are working in very different parts of the country. If you'd look at the map, you'd see that those villages are quite scattered. So yeah, both urban and rural areas in different contexts, different parts of the country.
Thank you for that, Pierre. Yeah, so it's quite varied sort of setup and complicated for you, but it's exciting in early days. So let's see how the alliance can grow and build on the work that you guys are setting up there on the foundations. And with that, I'll hand over to Vignesh to carry this conversation forward on the role of the alliance and where you see the alliance heading in the future.
Yeah, Sumana, thank you. So, Alliance, as I mentioned, is a network of multiple organizations. And also, waste, not considering, it's a mandate that it's a subject of a local body in India. Local body is the municipalities in India. So, it is a decentralized way. So, based on the geographical nature and the political context of that cities, there are different models which are existing in India. So Alliance, what we are trying to do is first we are trying to organize the base speakers to create more worker-based organizations like unions, cooperatives, or collectives in the local groups as such. There are successful models as well. For example, in Bangalore, it's an entrepreneurship model where the waste picker lets the entire facility infrastructure itself. In Pune, it's a worker-led model. They have their cooperative and have an agreement with the local body and have different sources of incomes from the material they sell and then the service fee they get from the citizens. So there are different models which exist there. Taking this as an example, and also as Roshan highlighted, mostly the waste management is seen as an urban in the urban context. So even wherever we are working in the metropolitan cities or the cities in the tier one level, we are able to organize waste pickers at the maximum. It's little flexible for us to intervene or do some interventions as such. But we are also taking these models and organizing waste pickers in the other parts of the countries as well with different supports. So national level coalition exists, but we are creating some sub chapters. For example, in Delhi there is a sub chapter and one in Maharashtra, so that they can bring up with some kind of models which is unique to their own state based on the regulations they have, based on the culture they have as such. And waste management is something which is more associated with the culture in India. So festivals comes and everything comes, the waste generation is more. It is done as a ritual, to be honest to say. So in such kind of situations, we can't work isolatedly as well. Okay, we have organized waste pickers, we can do something, but we can't work isolatedly. It is also important to engage with the citizens, engage with the other stakeholders in the supply chain, and how we can work it together. There are many other barriers to bring this up together, but that is the ultimate thing which the alliance focuses of partnering with multiple stakeholders, engaging in the citizen much, and how to create more awareness among the people, something we are focusing. And apart from it, we also engage at national, state, and local level to influence policies. So, as I mentioned, it's a local subject for waste management system. So we also do local interventions. Like for example, recently now Goa has introduced this new system of deposit refund scheme. So the waste pickers in Goa are struggling a lot, not just the waste pickers. So we have made a small alliance in that particular geography to speak for this, a citizen forum, a brand owners, and other stakeholders of the entire supply chain have come up to speak about how it will impact the entire city when this new system is introduced into the solid waste management system. So I'll elaborate a little more on it considering the time. And not just at the national, state, and the local level. Globally also we have represented. So there is an international body as well, International Alliance of Waste Pickers, where member-based organizations are members of. From India, there are 12 member-based organizations which I mentioned are members of. So waste pickers have been represented at global platforms like Global Plastic TT2, say, and they have put forth the just transition for waste pickers. There is a committee which was formed and a document of more than 50 pages which was submitted and have waste pickers represented themselves and spoken for their own rights. So what we believe in the waste pickers community also, as I mentioned, they can come up, they can enter into this job for many reasons. But what they are contributing should be recognized and there should be a mobility for them within this sector. And also, we believe that there should be a just transition. If any kind of systems, either it be a zero waste, within zero waste, there are multiple models which are developed. Whatever it comes, it should consider the recognition of waste pickers and should look on how to integrate them into a formal system which you are developing as such. And then, uh, yeah, so what we also believe is to build collective voices so waste speakers can negotiate themselves. As I mentioned, wherever the interventions are happening, waste speakers speak on their own. They are, for example, DRS Indumati, the union leader of TSS, has gone there representing the alliance, and she has clearly explains what will be the impact if the waste speakers in the city who are already contributing will be excluded from the entire systems. And then she also represented in the global plastic TT and spoke by herself. So such kind of capacities, trainings, awareness of themselves. Okay, I have entered into this job for some reasons, but is what is happening around me in this market? Such kind of awareness and the capacity buildings are done at individual level to the organizational level. Yeah, and then the advocacy for inclusion of waste pickers. And this is a very perfect time to share this, that the solid waste management rules has come up yesterday, after a lot of efforts. So solid waste management rules, when the draft came up, there are many good points which are in favor of waste pickers, but the language which are used in the governance model always like it's a bit exclusionary in that way. So we have come up with a long consultation process. We have done a 4 hours of online consultations immediately, because the deadlines always becomes a challenge for accessibility as such. So in ensuring that the translations are done in 5 languages, we brought waste speakers and done a 4 hour consultation explaining them what is mentioned, what they want in their geographies, what should be proposed, all these things. We did some 30 pages of recommendations, and then we did an experts review with other stakeholders, whoever we are working, who has a will to integrate waste speakers as such. And there are multiple stages as such we have done and submitted, and many things are favorable for us in some ways. And such things we do solid waste management rules, and also ensuring the social security and livelihood schemes as well. On speaking about that, we have also continuously took efforts to recognize the waste speakers at the national level, even though it is too late to do that. But we welcome that in a way that first time at the national level, waste speakers will be profiled and provided identity card through the Namaste scheme. It is under the NSFKDC, National Safai Karmachari Finance and Development Corporation. Initially, it was developed for the scheme itself was developed for manual scavengers, but they have added waste speakers as a component very recently. It is a very welcoming thing for us, at least now that the waste speakers are recognized at the national level. Because most of the time, what happens is this conflict is always there. The majority of the population who are engaging in informal waste works and waste speakers are migrants. Since the local body is there, the recognition of those waste speakers is always a missing puzzle. So first time at the national level, such kind of initiative is taken. We are very much welcoming that. It has limitations and challenges, but it's the first time we are welcoming that as well. And as Alliance, we are also developing a database of the waste speakers across India. So in the initial stage, we have designed the applications and come up with all the policies and everything. So it is soon to kickstart. So we're also developing a database of waste speakers so that he can have an evidence to say to the government or any stakeholders that this many waste speakers exist in India. It is always that narrative that it is invisible and everything. So you want to make it visible that okay, this many waste speakers are there. This many they are coming from this backgrounds. This is the kind of patterns we exist in the supply chain. This much they are contributing towards plastic supply chain, metal. There are multiple supply chains. So we have to come up with this. So we are developing this database as well. During this time, when the government has taken this step, it is more welcoming, and we are happy that through Alliance we are able to do that. And Namaste scheme also provides the interlinkages of many social security schemes as well. The Ayushman Bharat and the Ishram card and the pre-matric scholarships. So these 3 schemes, which are like isolated here and there, they have been brought it together under this scheme so that base speakers has a individual window or something to access to the social security schemes. So pre-matric scholarship was for the children of base speakers who are under the age of sorry, who are studying below 10th standard. Now we are also advocating to provide post-matric scholarship for the children. Okay, they have completed their pre-matric. What happens? Should they stop there and continue way speaking or the same job which they are doing generationally? So why can't we think of the higher education as such in the future? So that hope is there. So that kind of advocacy works we do, and I want to share a few stories what is happening at the grassroots level through our member organizations. One is this waste, as I mentioned, historically, waste speakers are contributing for a longer time, as I mentioned. And certain materials have has their own values because of the waste speakers community is what I feel. for example, to say, and even the way speakers have fought at the judiciary level as well. Krishna, to say, he has fought in the court to bring EPR policy for MLP materials. Initially, for MLPs, they didn't have as such. So, but he fought for it. And then for textile is news thing which is spoken about. Even though there are challenges in the market, but textile is something, as I said, culturally also, people know recently that Pongal Sankranti is celebrated in the southern part of India. They have a ritual that they burn this textile materials itself on road. So such kind of a ritual exists. It's very happier and hope to see that we have created some value for those materials with the community and with other stakeholders in this society. So such kind of initiatives are very much inspiring to see how a cultural thing can be transformed, can be seen as a transformative thing for the future to bring zero waste as such. And also, I'm very happy to hear that we recently had some conversation with few waste speakers. We were thinking chappals are generated most now. Like people are using chappals, there is no more stitching or that culture. So, what can we do about the chappal? Is there a way we can find a solution for this chappal in recycling or some other spaces? Something we are thinking for MLPs also. As Roshan mentioned, many are false solution which prevails now. What we are now focusing is to stop ending up in the landfill. We have to, until that there are, like for example, the MLPs, to say the boards which are created to MLPs. Many of the waste speakers led MRF state MLP boards as well. Since there is no other solution, the false emotion, false solution is always promoted. But there should be some other things which you have to focus on, and you have to develop more conversation. How to make the source segregation or decentralized in a decentralized way we can do. And then in the focusing on the decentralization, Sumana, you can stop me or if I'm going too long.
No,
I'll
no,
take
no, go ahead, go ahead. Finish, please
five
go
more
ahead.
minutes. I'll just take. Yeah. So the in a decentralized model when we speak, so waste speakers have their own companies registered, like Switch Plus is there and DWCC space are there. So they have their own spaces where they are doing the source segregation and the processing of the waste at the household level, starting from the household level in the apartments and to a ward level. So in household level, like Sri Mukti Sangatna in Mumbai and Swachh in Pune, the cooperatives, worker-based organizations work with the local communities, the resident welfare associations, to build the composting plant in their own premises, and they take care of it. They pay it, but the waste speakers communities, they train the citizens how to segregate waste. They collect the waste and do composting and sell it for their outsiders, and also take care of the gardenings which are inside the residential premises as well for the wet waste as such. And for the dry waste also they sell it. It comes as a source of income for the waste pickers. And also many textile waste which are collected for Indumati's, as I mentioned, Indumati from Bangalore. She has her own textile recovering facility. From there, what she has built up now is a thrift store, which installs in every public spaces, particularly for the marginalized communities in the slums as such. It is very much helpful for them, and it is reusable, which can be promoted more as such. So that kind of interventions are like worker, like it comes as a collective thing after discussion, and they have come up with those solutions for creating a zero waste futures. And then the reuse models. Reuse is something which is coming up, and integration of waste speakers is which is left. But we have done a huge consultation in the last year with Gaia and other multiple stakeholders in India to understand what is reuse meant in India. We did a 2 days consultation with the waste speakers communities themselves, and then with the other stakeholders in India. So that this is very much interesting that many things itself is completely new for other stakeholders and myself to be part of that consultation. And many things are already existing. It is which was more surprising is there are many reuse systems which are existing in India. So, for example, the dishwashing, which is spoken in the urban cities, we found it as a model in a rural space in Bangalore, where they're already doing it as with the help of a self-help group. And tailoring of this textile waste, that is done in some spaces. And then the bottles which are thrown away in the public spaces, that are collected, washed, and how it can be reused as a beautifications things in the homes as well. So many other smaller models exist. So how can this model be taken across is something which we focus. As an alliance, we also take that role to do a learning exchange between these cities, to exchange the models which they have developed, to exchange the experiences they have come up with, to exchange the policies which they have drafted along with the local bodies. It is not just about the community. Even sometimes the government officials we do trainings for the government officials as well. When government officials reach out to us to understand the models from other cities, we also have provided consultation for the bureaucrats how they can integrate certain models into their own cities where they don't have any initial beginning of segregation at all. So such kind of works we do, and all is like final thing as a role of alliance. Anything can't be done isolatedly. So we also do as a partnership with many local bodies, stakeholders as such, and many other uh, peers who have the common will to work for the communities in integrations as such. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that gave a really good idea of the variety and the complexity of how the alliance functions and the roles that it needs to play and it plays. I think one of the key things for me was also that when we talk about just transition, and this is a bedrock principle on how zero waste functions and what we believe in. Often, especially in Asian countries in the global south, there is so much knowledge and information with waste pickers and informal waste workers, but then it's often hidden because one, they're not acknowledged, their knowledge and experience is not acknowledged, and often the language of governance and international spaces is very different, and therefore this gets discounted. But the fact that the alliance is able to support them to be heard and bring them front and center into these spaces is really important, because otherwise they're often unfortunately dismissed and devalued in multiple ways and arenas. And so this is really important and really lovely to see and hear that how much we are able to as you're able to as an alliance support them to step forward and own that space. That's really great. And with that, I'll shift slightly sideways and northwards to the Himalayas and hand over to Roshan to talk about the alliance and how they see their role evolving in the Himalayas.
Thanks, Sumana. Vignesh was amazing, because I think Namaste scheme hasn't really taken off in the mountains, and also mountains has its own issues when it comes to waste worker alliances or waste workers as such. Having said that, I think Zero Waste Himalaya kind of is a network that needs to strengthen itself. There is more and more understanding in the Himalaya to look at waste management, and you keep hearing, Everest is getting cleaned and this is getting cleaned, but it kind of tends to be very short term and false. It doesn't really solve the solution as such. So I think highlighting the complete zero waste understanding of life cycle is something that needs to be done. What is great about the alliance's members right now in Ladakh, Little Green World is really trying to zero waste the winter games in Ladakh. Amya in Arunachal did a great work on looking at local food systems as well as local packaging recently. Northeast Waste Collective, again in Arunachal, did a very specific work with regard to reducing religious packaged food offerings and looking at natural offerings in a monastery in Arunachal. Right now in Darjeeling, my colleagues are busy trying to zero waste Darjeeling Gorkhe Hat, which is really promoting local food systems as well as local products and making it zero waste. And on 31st in Sikkim with Swachh Bharat, there is work looking at Lal Bazaar and local food systems, reclaiming local food systems and trying to look at zero waste. But having said that, I think for us to move forward is how do we really build solidarity amongst all our partners across the mountains, our alliances, strengthen our partnership with alliances such, whether be it in climate, whether be it in biodiversity and food also, and then build solidarities across the world, because sometimes regional alliances tend to get bottlenecked within the social ecology of the region. So I think being part of the Gaia family, Break Free from Plastic, has been great for us, and also the Zero Waste India Alliance as such. So I think these are the premise that we want to take forward. But having said that, there are some specific issues that we also want to highlight is the geography, the issues of going beyond urban, tourism, and specifically religious pilgrimages and tourism that create a new form of a niche waste that we have to kind of figure out. And then within the policy landscape, I think it has been great, like, recently Swachh Bharat talked about a specific resource allocation for urban cities in the mountains, which is a great step. And then I think it needs to be foregrounded and taken forward to the whole Himalaya. It is not just an urban issue as such. But having said that, some of the things that we are struggling with and we need to work towards is really talking about producer responsibility as such, because like I said, the Himalayan cleanup comes out with multi-layered plastic and food and beverage packaging as such. And so we cannot deal with it in the mountains. We need to have extended producer responsibility come to the mountains with all its challenges in its existing form. But ultimately, the bigger question is, we already have food systems that are diverse, unpackaged, local, tasty, nutritious, and we need to really incentivize and celebrate it as such, and not just talk about stopping production systems as such. Having said that, I think it also needs to, in the intermediary, like food safety standards needs to be discussed. FSSAI needs to recognize the challenges of these products, the ultra-processed food that are hyperplastic packaged as such. And I think that closing is something that needs to be voiced out from the mountains and then taken forward in solidarity with the rest of the world and the country also as such. So I think we have to build upon our traditional knowledge and systems and build upon our practices, but then also recognize the challenges that are there. And I think ultimately build alliances as such that the climate crisis that we are experiencing is linked to the waste issue also. The biodiversity loss is also experienced related to our waste crisis. And then ultimately our own well-being of physical and mental health is directly related to what we are eating and what we are, I would say, even forced to eat and drink in the mountains, and I think that's where we are looking forward to, where our actions are built within the Himalaya, but also in solidarity with our allies and our partners across India and across the world also. Yeah, that's how we look at it. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Roshan. Yes, and that was a really important point of the fact that the connections beyond waste, right? When we're talking public health, we're talking farming and agroecological systems, broader issues, water conservation, biodiversity conservation, that it's all interlinked. And, it's not that when we're looking at waste, it's in a silo. There are all of these interlinks and they're very important. And they all have a very strong and obvious link to climate and how we, mitigate and battle the climate crisis that we face today. For listeners, I just wanted to also share that the FSSAI, which Roshan mentioned, is the Food Safety Authority in India. It's the central government body which sets the rules and regulations around food safety. Just in case not everyone may be familiar with that. And so with that, I'll hand this back to Shibu to take it forward for the next bit.
Thank you, Sumana. I think it was amazing to hear from three speakers about the role as a kind of a group or kind of a network. I would see this more than a network. It is also like a forming or the inspiring or the battery for the regional, the sub-regional movement building for zero waste. And so this is something is happening, and I'm happy to see that. But again, like when we say that, okay, these are positive things, there are some models are happening. There are initiatives by civil society organizations. Some of the governments are responding to it and providing some, some like level playground for people to work. For example, like in India, that solid waste management rules. All these things are happening, but still we are also like having some challenges. So to see about those key challenges, I'll just pass it on to Mr. Pierre from Mongolia. Know that Mongolia, one of the major thing you said, like the geography, the way people are like decentralized in different, like the urban rural divide is so huge. Apart from that, on the policy, so you are mentioning about the role of the network with the 5 organizations. Even with the 5 organizations, you are trying to address a certain percentage of the total population in especially in the local municipalities. And so at the policy advocacy level, what are the kind of challenges? We also know that like at the global level there are so many things happening, and that is also being reflected at the national policy level, and there are some kind of pushes for far solutions especially. And how far, like, or what are the key challenges when you see, like you say that like a bottom up approach, and this is very perfect site for zero waste, but what are the kind of barriers you see at the national level or at the policy level, or what are the other key challenges to get it done apart from the geographical barriers? Over to you, Pierre.
Yeah, thank you for the question. One of the challenges would be the centralization of the state. Like if you work in the countryside and you manage to explain and convince the local authorities, local communities, still lots of things are controlled by the national authorities in terms of budget, in terms of processes, and lots of stuff. The hands are tied in the local governments. So this is a challenge, because sometimes we see in some villages we worked for years to explain and convince, and finally you see some change in mentalities, but they cannot implement what they know want to do because the power is still very centralized. That's a challenge. Another challenge, I would say, at the national level would be the link between the industry and the government at different levels. This makes when you want to hold corporate accountable for their pollution, it's very difficult to pass the right laws if those companies are so intricated with the power. So this is quite challenging. The difference of means between our small organization and alliance versus our opponent, the lobbies, the industries, this is a big challenge, because with such limited resources, we can have all the right answers and messages and everything. If you don't have sufficient time and workforce to promote those messages and advocacy, it's very challenging. Of course, it's trivial to say. Obviously, money is an issue, but it's a real issue that we actually really need to find solution for all the alliances and the local NGOs, because otherwise there's just such a gap that we can't fill by ourselves in terms of resources. Another challenge, I think, would be the media. In Mongolia, like in many countries, I'm afraid the media are not so good all the time. So there are lots of small, good independent media, but they also lack resources. And there are some bad trends of always new scandals, always small things that are pop up in the news. And if you want to explain in detail, you need investigation, you need a lot of time to explain. And most of the media, they either don't want or don't have the resources to go in depth with those zero waste connected issues. So this is a very complicated challenge if you want to raise awareness among the population so they can put pressure also on the government. If nobody really talks about it seriously, then nobody really cares about it seriously, because most people don't even know. That, I would say, would be and connected to that, in Mongolia, I find that there's a relatively low level of activism. People there is a lot of solidarity and lots of good things, but in the sense that you're not gonna have so much demonstration, so much strike, so much really activism, which makes some things complicated because an advocacy campaign is only strong of the support of the people behind it. And if you don't have that support explicitly and visibly in the streets or in other forms, it's also, I think, very challenging to turn your advocacy messages into tangible reality. I could mention another two. The fact that half of the country's population live in the capital city, where the most industries are, where all the power is, makes Ulaanbaatar, like the city, the center of everything. And it's also at the same time the most difficult place to change because it's so crowded. There are so many challenges in the city that it's very complicated. But because it has all this attention, all this focus, all those projects, all this money, it kind of neglects the countryside, like in many countries also. And that's also make things difficult because you say, okay, we actually have models that work in the countryside. It could work for half of the population with limited support, but because all the focus is put on the city, it's a challenge. So there's also, we need to re-visibilize the countryside areas more to promote the zero waste initiative that comes from there. And lastly, I could mention that the fact that there are, again, like in most countries, so many different problems and challenges and issues that can be perceived as more urgent or more pressing, more important by many people and the government, that it kind of diminishes the priority that authorities can put on zero waste. But to conclude on the bright side, I think that this last part also brings opportunities because, as we know, most of the zero waste solution we want to offer are facing systemic challenges that bring all these other problems. I mean, this capitalistic economy, all the inequalities, the lack of democracy and everything, all those core challenges that create the problem we try to solve with zero waste are also the core reasons of all the other problems that many people may focus on. So if we can, through zero waste, find solutions to those other problems that people can consider more important to them, I think there are opportunities for zero waste to progress. And more broadly, I'd say there are opportunities for collaboration with other organizations that have nothing to do with waste. I mean, if you say that, for instance, as I mentioned, maybe there's a problem with the over centralization of power, then if you start connecting with organizations that fight for more democracy, that fight for more local governments, decentralization, it's not directly linked to the waste issue, but ultimately it is. So this is just one example, but I think we can connect most of what we do to various topics, and the zero waste movement would probably gain from connecting more actively to those different areas.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah, I think that is the challenge. This is same everywhere. Like when you start working on zero waste, that becomes only entry point. So you just start addressing the municipal waste, then you end up in even working for democracy. Like you need governance structures, you need that environmental justice, you need to work on just transition, you need to work with different sectors, aspects of the total social development. That is why zero waste is very important, because it is not just looking at sanitation. It is more than that. It is even now, it is at the climate action. So now zero waste is climate action. But I think, being in a kind of a network, the only way is to just be inclusive and get more diverse organizations who are focusing or specializing on specific components and bringing it together into seeing that larger picture. That is going to be very challenging. And I think this is in India or in other parts of Asia, we are also seeing this. And the way the organization are now trying to cope up with is to bring those diverse views or diverse sector, the people from across sector coming together and giving that input that actually strengthens the network. But still, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like like when you mentioned that the other side, this is the large lobbies, and you have small number of organizations. It is kind of a story of David and Goliath. But again, just because there is some passion and some commitment, that commitment and passion drives this network. Hope the network will be able to just address these challenges and go ahead. And I'll just go back to Vignesh. So Vignesh was very happy about the recent win over the municipal solid waste management rules. I know that for last couple of decades, Indian Waste Picker Alliance is working, they are breaking their head with the national government, with state government, and I think n number of agencies on policies or the supporting mechanisms to get waste pickers integrated into the system. And now that becomes a kind of, I think, right now the waste picker program is not just about waste picking, but it is also climate action, where we are also leading. The waste pickers are becoming the climate champions, at least in a couple of cities in India. So that is also happening. But at the same time, I think there are some challenges. For example, though we have this kind of favorable conditions by policy or by rules, but we see that for some, say, the decorated, some celebrated models, model waste management programs, the existing systems have been disturbed. For example, look at Pune, what is happening in Pune. That is one of the largest waste picker integrated solid waste management, zero waste program in the country, or in Asia, with around 3,000 to 4,000 waste pickers in it. But now we see that there are other interests coming up, and they are trying to replace those waste pickers. Right at the one point, we are fighting hard to get all these integration of waste pickers into policy, and now we see that on the ground, on the contrary, this is also happening, where people who are already integrated are being thrown out of the systems. So how do you see those kind of, what are the other challenges apart from this in terms of the new developments, especially when you look from the Indian Waste Picker Alliance? And Indian Waste Picker Alliance, I think, for the listeners, it is not just providing their support within India. They are also extending their support in mobilizing and sensitizing waste pickers in other parts of Asia Pacific region as well. So back to Vignesh on this. I would like to hear from you about these kind of the newer challenges and the newer governance. Mostly it is related to governance and technology.
Thank you, Shibu. So my first point was that when we have started to discuss about the challenge, which immediately came up to my mind was the exact thing which you mentioned. Okay, I appreciated. I was very thankful, for representing this space to the government, that the recognition has been made. Everything looks good in the rules and policies now. What happens to the practice? What happens to the implementation? That's the major problem in India we face. Comparatively to other countries, India is little better in policies, would say. But in the implementation parts comes the huge challenge. And the major challenge sometimes is even setting local bodies. The government officers are even not aware of the existing rules and regulations, and the mention of integration of waste pickers as such. Only because of this mention of integration of waste pickers into the local solid waste management system, we are able to speak and have some negotiation with the government officers, or else the voices of waste pickers is completely unheard. So these successful models which I mentioned, you have highlighted, like in Pune city, in Bangalore city, is a well-spoken model, as you mentioned, not just in India, but across the nations. Many other countries come here to learn how this model has been incorporated, how an agreement is made between a waste picker, a resource organization, and a municipality. So these models are already under threat. So one thing which we are also focusing is, okay, solid waste management rules is here. So we have already developed a draft guideline, how to integrate waste pickers with the MOHUA. Sorry, MOHUA is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India, who is taking the responsibilities of integrating of waste pickers into solid waste management under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan as such. So we have already developed a draft, and we think it is a perfect time now for Alliance to push to implement that guidelines, which clearly outlines the duties of different bodies and departments and their roles, how to integrate waste pickers from the local level to the state level and to the national level, and how a namaste. So different schemes are there for the benefit of waste picker in an isolated ways. How we can incorporate everything in a single window, like, okay, integration of things is in the rule. Okay, implementation we have a guidelines. Namaste scheme is there under different ministries. So how can we link Namaste under the solid waste management? So this kind of visioning exercise is something which alliances is focusing on to do in the future and try to implement toward the grassroots level to reach the last mile thing as such. And one more thing, and I'll pick specific examples of the models. So Pune example, Pune, what happened is it is a very well-known spoken model because even in Bangalore it's an entrepreneurship model, but it is completely a worker-led model in Pune where they have two sources of income. They collect their waste, they get a service free from the citizens, and also from the materials which they get two sources of income. So what happened is they piloted this one model, getting indoor model as an influence and tried to implement it in Pune. So this model is very well spoken because of the competitiveness which the government has built between the states and the local bodies. Who is going to rank first in this country? Just because it's ranking first, we don't think like. So what the government is also trying to do is like invisibilizing the workers. They're also trying to invisibilize waste. Okay, if waste can't be seen, then we are out of waste. We are doing it well. So where does this end up? Where do these go? What are the solutions you are providing for this? We are never tend to look into it. So waste is gone. That's all. Okay, use and throw. Like use throw. I don't care about it. If it goes out of my space, okay, from my house, if it is not, I don't care about it. If it goes away from my ward as a local councillor, I don't care about it. If it goes away from the state, I don't care about it. There are instances from the household level to the state level where households throw the waste into the different spaces owned by different people, and also the states. In Tamil Nadu, many waste have been dumped, biomedical waste and the animal waste have been dumped. There are many cases. So states also does that many times. So there's such kind of incidents are challenging where the government just focuses on achieving some targets rather than focusing on how we are going to processing the waste and where the waste is going to end up at the end. So this is one challenging. And in the governance model, as you say, and this is one reason. And then how there are certain strategies in Pune, they're not just the workers. They have collaborated with citizens and other stakeholders and brought many solidarity and they fought to their end to end this. So it is still on an ongoing conversation, but a lot of conversations have been brought not just as the local level. The presence of alliance is much important, I feel, in this space where this local level issue has been brought into the national level issue and a global issue because Swachh Cooperative in Pune is spoken as a well-known model in different spaces across the nations. It has been showcased in different spaces with collaborators, even Gaia and many other global partners have showcased such cases in many spaces. So it is very much important that alliance should exist in such kind of spaces to bring up the issues and escalate it and bring attention to it. And as Roshan mentioned, I missed to speak about the social media. Social media has become a huge. Pere also mentioned that social media has become a huge platform now for creating more awareness about those issues. So we use also social media as a campaign to bring more attention about the awareness. And zero waste also has an social media also has an important role in creating a future for zero waste as well because citizens are more engaged to it rather than doing a grassroots level workshops, plays as such. Now social media has become a platform to reach to the citizens very easily. So with that social media, citizens engagement, there are multiple strategies which has already actually helped to fight in such cases. In Bangalore also, the second thing is about the privatization. So what is happening is rules are perfect and everything, okay, but they are doing it exactly the opposite which is meant to do. They are giving it under the contract, so a private contractor comes who focuses just on the centralized model. Be centralized model and the waste speakers are completely excluded. When privatization happens, they just focus on technology taking away the livelihoods of multiple people who are engaged for a longer period of time. What kind of technology are you focusing in? Is it coming from a bottom to top approach? No, never. It just incorporates a model from different geographies or different countries and takes it. So when such kind of interventions happens, it takes away the livelihood of multiple people who are depending on it. I'll take one more minute to explain what is happening informally. So even the policies like extended producers' responsibility, it's spoken only till the recyclers. Okay, a formal kind of setup is happening between the brand owners and the recyclers. Below the recyclers, there are multiple stages. Okay, How does it go? Waste pickers collects the waste, give it to scrap dealers. Scrap dealers then give it to the aggregators. Then the aggregators provide it to the recyclers. So this entire four steps of stakeholders engagement is completely happening informal, and a huge population is engaged in this. The worker population is engaged in this informal economy, not just as a human resource. If you say, I don't prefer to use the word as a human resource as a workers, but also the infrastructures and the market which exist informally. So this new models refuses to recognize the existing models at the grassroots level, which is functioning informally. So the technology which is proposed also, okay, is it a good thing at grassroots levels? There are many false solutions which is provided, because the first focus in the policy space is to say there is no solution at all. One solution is a problem for another. So the preferred solution for now we focus on. So certain false solution is suggested for now. But as a governance model itself, what kind of technology are you bringing in? The waste to energy plant, what is going to do? Here, we have an existing informal economy where a huge recovery rate is there for the materials which is generated as waste. And we have a huge recovery rate of plastics. We have a huge recovery rate of materials because of the contribution of waste pickers. Just because we don't recognize it doesn't mean that there is no waste management at all at the local level. So this kind of issues are there. One more case which I also want to bring is about the DRS system, the deposit refund system. Shivu, sorry,
We have, can you just make it quick because I have to just move to Roshan as well. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So the deposit refund system, which was introduced in Goa, it focused only on the metals, plastics, and tin, which already has a recovery rate in that city, 300 ferry dollars. The local name which they call the waste pickers as ferry dollars. They contributed a lot, and the government itself has invested a lot on the infrastructures of building MRFs as such. Suddenly, when this new system comes up, they want to introduce a new infrastructure as collection points and completely bringing a new human resource into these spaces. So what happens to the existing informal economy? That they have missed it. And one more thing, the materials which already have a high value recovery rate is focused. What happens to the MLP, which is the actual problem here? There is no recovery rate for MLP just because it doesn't have any value, which is not promoted at all. So that was missed when such kind of systems are brought up. So we had a meeting, they have considered MLP, but they have not considered the integration of waste pickers into the system. So we'll fight again, we'll speak with them. And the third main important challenge which I face in this space is the social stigma. So waste pickers are facing more caste-based and gender-based discrimination because of the social. Majority of the people who are coming from who are working as waste pickers are from the Dalit communities. So that kind of stigmatizations are always there for integrating them as such. So just to finish as the final point, the challenge is not the lack of solutions; it is the lack of the political will to include or integrate waste pickers. Thank you, Shivu. Sorry for taking.
Thank you, Vignesh. I think you said it well. The major challenge when it comes to India, it is compartmentalization of projects and departments. So there is a joke about this Indian departmentalization. Like if you take a cow, the front side of the cow belongs to animal husbandry department, and the back side of the cow belongs to dairy development. So this is the kind of those two departments never work together, and there is no integration at all. And this is same thing happening with when it comes to solid waste management and social development, integration, everything. So you rightly said, and I think this is one of the complaint Roshan always raise, that the people sitting in the plains making policies and framework for the diverse country. So back to Roshan, the kind of challenges on like what you see in especially for the zero waste Himalaya, not just from the Indian perspective, but the whole zero waste Himalaya region.
Thanks, Shibu. I think I'll just take off from what Vignesh kind of mentioned, because I reiterate what Pierre and Vignesh said also, because there is extreme visual and sensory narrative of waste. So if you shift it away, you've solved the problem. You're forgetting the toxicity of it, the impacts of it, and also the extreme intensive resource extractive process of it, which kind of then relegates certain regions, certain people, certain communities in unjust and inequitable situations as such. So because of that point of perspective, the narrative that we use for waste, I think there is so much, one of the biggest problems that we are seeing is the push for false solution in the mountains. Waste to energy is being pushed at a very big level. And some of it is as small as putting up small, tiny incinerators to burn your menstrual waste in institutions as such. And I think that is an important component, that the false solutions, whether be waste to energy, burning, or even constant talking about linkage to recycling as like, waste to wealth, because the problem of the crisis is the multi-layered plastic that has no solutions, and the connectivity. Even with the problematic burning in cement kilns, the mountains do not have connectivity to take it down. So the problematic EPR does not give sufficient leverage and linkages that allows those waste to travel down. So in that sense, producer responsibility, or the lack of it, is in the middle term the biggest problem, I think, for the mountains. But the promotion of all these false solutions is also hugely challenging, but that is mid-level still. I think from a narrative point of view, the focus on technology seems to be the big problem. There is always this expectation that there is a singular magical technology that will solve the problem, and what we've realized is only shifting the problem, and it's actually increasing the toxicity as such. And so the focus on soft, the knowledge, is never there. And knowledge is contextual and empowering and local, and that is not talked about. It is always this expectation that there is a magical technological wand that will come. But I think the other side that zero waste constantly faces, like I said, with MLPs, with religious waste, is the producer responsibility and questioning the production systems as such. It is always end of the line, let's offer something that will solve the problem as such. So in that point of view, I think production systems and products in itself needs to be questioned. And that's where I would really reiterate what Pierre said. Media promotes products that we don't need, that are toxic in nature, and that are problematic for us. Whereas systems that are traditional, indigenous, and also like extremely people and environment friendly are never ever highlighted in media as such. So I think that is something that is very importantly a problem for us in the mountains. And then the policies tend to be end of pipeline, and also are not sensitive to the mountains. But when I say mountains, I also acknowledge that it excludes rural India, it excludes forest areas, it excludes islands, coastal nations, fisher folk. So this, when I say it, it's in solidarity with all these communities and ecologies that are not talked about. I will go down to a specific thing for that comes from Zero Waste Himalaya, from our waste and brand audit, is the high amount of food and beverage that comes in hyper plastic packaged material. And in that sense, in the midterm, none of these packaging have front of package labeling that highlights the problematic salt, sugar, additives, and the ultra processed nature of these products. So while on one hand we talk about issues of diabetes in India, we talk about obesity in India, we talked about nutrition and malnutrition in India, but none of these products have labeling. Media promotes these products. You come to the mountains, have Maggi, which is instant noodles, which comes in plastic packaging, and it is ultra processed. We have products like in the past 3 years, extreme amount of energy drinks that are scattered across the mountains, hugely promoted by celebrities and media. Never do we talk about the forage, the fermented and farm products of the mountains as such. So I think these are issues that are there. And even the whole notion that that these products are sold in front of schools, and whether be it like salted or sugar rated or energy drinks, and how easily they are marketed and then also promoted as such. And so I think that linkage is there. And so I think the challenges of intersection is also equally there. So there are people fighting against diabetes, there are people fighting against obesity, there are people fighting against hunger, climate, biodiversity, but then zero waste links it all up. But somewhere down the line, I think we have not been able to connect the dots also. So I think we have a production problem, we have products problem, And I think the way forward is solidarities, allyship that really kind of brings forth the understanding of zero waste and offers solutions that are contextual, sensitive to the diverse socio-ecology of the mountains. And I think moving forward in that line would also be equitable and just to other similar situations across India and across the world also as such. I think so. I think there is to end by saying what Pierre and Vignesh talked about is this over centralization and oversimplification of the issue and offering solutions that are simplistic and technological in nature, and that is not relevant to the context that we are there of, and then looking at it from a bigger systemic point of view, which I think is still missing, because it ends up being the waste workers issue, or it becomes zero waste Himalaya, Swachh Bharat representative of different states to take it forward, and not the entire community of the mountains and the world in itself. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Those are powerful words, Roshan. Like the insight was, it is very important. Yeah, it is over centralization and over simplification. That is one of the major challenge. I think the importance is that the networks you represent, three of you are here, and there are many other networks in this region which are actually leading towards positive changes at the policies at national and regional level. That is the power of these networks, and we are happy to see all of you here. And I think I'll just share it with Sumana to conclude this session, because the time is up for the next sessions. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shibu. Yes, I think there was a lot of interesting points which were raised by all three of you, and we could probably talk for another hour or so and delve deeper if we had the time. But definitely that issue of narrative at different levels is really important. It's how all the stakeholders involved, whether it's government or citizens or the media or anybody else, how they view and approach this issue, and the fact that we tend to think and work in silos and focus, like you said, on a very specific thing instead of looking at the bigger picture sometimes. So that's a huge issue. But at the same time, I think what's really heartening is, with given all of these challenges that you all enumerated, there is still so much work being done at the ground level. There is so much progress, and we really need to take inspiration and courage from that work that all the alliances are doing, that the networks are doing at the grassroots level. And how do we support and build on that and work together to move that needle further towards where we want to a more zero waste world, to a more just world, to a better future for the next generations to come and for the planet is really what I think we need to look forward to and work together for. And thank you so much for sharing all of these aspects and insights from your experience and your work from your alliances, and looking forward to seeing this build into bigger and better things going forward. And thank you to all our participants. I'm sure you had a lot of information coming out, and do reach out if you have any questions and so on. And we would love to connect you with the speakers going forward. And a final invitation to all our members and our participants to join and celebrate the Zero Waste Month, to celebrate all the great work which is being done out there, and to continue and get inspired and build up. And with that, we wind up this session, but there is more coming up. There is another part where we'll be looking at Southeast Asia and the Pacific to hear more stories from alliances in that part of the world and to learn more from them. So take a break, come back, rejoin us in a few for that session. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
What's happening? Brex, would you like to start? Looks like we can't hear Brex, and he's going to be right back. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started, given
Cannot
that
hear
we
what Brex is
behind
talking
him.
about.
Yes.
Brex, yeah.
Yes, Brex is going to join again. If you could kindly be on mute when you're not speaking, there is a tiny button on the top. Just to get us started off while we get Brex back in the room, I just want to welcome everyone back, and we are continuing the journey across the region, hearing from more national alliances. And right now, we'll be speaking to alliances from Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and the Pacific. My name is Arpita Bhagat, and I am the Plastic Policy Officer with Gaia Asia Pacific. And with me today, who you can't see right now on the screen, is my wonderful colleague Rex Aravallo, who's the anti-incineration campaigner in the office. And just to kick us off, I want to first introduce Ryan Nusantara, who is the co-coordinator of Alliance Zero Waste Indonesia. He's someone who's been fighting plastic pollution for more than a decade now in Indonesia. He's the coordinator of Alliance Zero Waste Indonesia. His journey started in agriculture, grew into a passion for plastic-free living during his college days, and has since expanded into leading national campaigns, building reuse systems, setting regional targets to reduce single-use plastics. He's also actively involved in global movements like the Break Free from Plastic to make sure that Indonesia's voice is being heard. Ryan is a dear friend, and he's also active in multiple international policy forums, including the Global Plastics Treaty. Over to the next guest. Now that I see Brex is back, Brex, would you like to introduce Lam Chung Hua? I think we are again seeing tech issues on Brex's end. So I suppose I'm going to do the intro as well. Lam Chung Hua was the coordinator of Gabungan Anti-Incinerator Kebangsaan, or GAIK, G-A-I-K. He's someone who's been right at the front line of Malaysia's fight against incineration. He is the coordinator of GAIK and the chairman of the Kepong Reject Incinerator movement. Lam works closely with communities and allies across the country to challenge for solution and push for real people-centered zero waste alternatives. His leadership reminds us that protecting communities and shaping a zero waste future starts with organized collective action. We are very excited that Lam could be here, and let's hope to hear some exciting learnings from Gayak as we move forward in the movement. Next is Quach Thi Soon. She is Vietnam's country director of Pacific Environment and coordinator of the Vietnam Zero Waste Alliance. She's a powerhouse, I can vouch for that, who has been shaping environmental policy and promoting zero waste initiatives in Vietnam. She's the national coordinator of the alliance, and comes with a PhD in integrated water resources management from Milan Polytechnic, and years, in fact, decades of experience working in the movement, with being at the forefront of driving zero waste work in Vietnam since almost 2017. From policy to on the ground work, Vietnam soon is making sure that her country is moving towards a cleaner, greener, zero waste future. And we are very excited to see what Soon will be sharing with us this afternoon, evening. And last but not the least, we have Aline Belmide Sison. She's the president and board of trustees with Eco Waste Coalition in the Philippines. We have her. Uh, we have somebody with us who's been championing zero waste for decades. Um, Eileen is the president of Board of Trustees at EcoWaste Coalition and the Philippines representative to Gaia's Asia Pacific Regional Advisory Committee. And so she is very involved in guiding the direction that the organization takes. Eileen's journey started back in the 90s, inspired by pioneering zero waste advocate, from implementing NGO-led municipal solid waste management programs to protecting environmentally sensitive areas from landfills. She's been making an impact on the ground and in policy. Welcome, Tita Eileen, as she is very dearly called in the Philippines and across. So we have an exciting lineup, and we are very, very glad that we have this very diverse but very connected group of people with us today. And I want to start us off with Ryan. Ryan, if you could throw some light on how the Indonesian Alliance came together. And while doing so, could you also give us an introduction to the Alliance, please?
Thank you, Arpita. So, Alliance of Zero Waste Indonesia, or ASWI, will gonna be 10 years anniversary this year in October. So we started our alliance when we submitted a judicial review to the Supreme Court in Indonesia over the regulation on accelerations of the incinerations plan in Indonesia. So we won the case, even though that the government still continue to make another regulations on the incinerations, which is, I mean, like, that's why, I mean, like, we're still here a decade later to keep pushing that we don't want the incineration, and we want more justice and right solutions like the zero solution. So just for a brief context for you all, ASWI is a national civil society alliance that brings together the community groups, NGOs, researchers, and local champions working to advance zero waste system in Indonesia. And we form to strengthen coordinations, evidence-based advocacy, collective actions. So zero waste is just not a community initiative, but also a recognized public policy pathway grounded in a social justice, climate action, and public health. You can read more about ASWI in Gaia website. You can search the title of the report that Gaia specifically using ASWI as best practices on alliance building, titled "Bridging Differences for a Common Zero Waste Goal." So I think it's good to also learn. We have another alliance to. So we can learn. I mean, like, we learn together from Vietnam, from Philippines, from Malaysia, and also, even though we are in the different countries, but we are in the same continents, in the same region. So I think there's a lot of expertise, a lot of experience that we can do together on how to also shift the narrative, shift the policy, not only in our respective country, but also in our region.
Thanks so much, Ryan. It's amazing how you talked about us being the same people, trying to build this movement in the same region. And we do have commonalities in Asia, both in terms of the kind of solutions that we want to push, but also in terms of the challenges that we encounter. And so I'm just curious, and of course, I was looking at the publication that you mentioned. The link has been, I hope, shared with the public audience. Would you be able to give us some of these, this insight into the kind of challenges that you encountered in setting up the alliance, please?
Yes, working as in an alliance is very different with working with in the organizations. I mean, like, in organization, we manage ourselves, but In the alliances, there are 9 NGOs in ASWI, and we have our own procedures. We have our own North Stars, and it's very challenging on how we can find the commonalities. But I think uh, all of us face the same challenges externally, like a strong political and financial bias towards landfill, incineration, and fall solutions. We also face limited funding for prevention, reuse solutions, and community-based systems. We also face fragmented governance and weak enforcement from the governments on how to do the proper waste management, and the continued marginalized of waste speakers and frontline community. These are the commonalities that we uh, agreed on and wants to address together on how to answer these challenges, and also remind us that the zero waste solution is not just a technical solutions, but it's about system change, it's about governance and a justice issue. So I think even though we have different uh, leaderships brains, we have different behaviors in our organization, but there are a lot of commonalities, there are a lot of area that we can work together. And I mean, like, it's almost 10 years. I mean, like, it's amazing that we can work that long, and I hope to see more achievements in the coming decades.
Absolutely. Rex, can you just
Yeah, sorry. I hope
some,
my sound is better now, and
of
apologies,
course.
everyone. Hello, Ryan. It was a great. I think I was able to get back in when you were describing the alliance, and when you were talking about how your alliance is organized and the challenges that you face. Um, what struck me was that you talked about how zero waste is also a systemic approach. And I'm wondering, as your alliance deals with the challenges in your context, how has your alliance utilized this in mind, the systemic approach? How have you moved forward in this? Could you perhaps give us one or two examples? Thanks.
Yes. So last year, in November, we done our 10-year strategic planning. So it's we want to see, so based on our the first 10 years of our advocacy and campaigns, we want to be more ambitious on how to answer those challenges. I mean, like, those challenges still happens now. It's um, uh, we thought at first, when we acknowledge 10 years ago, it's going to be different. I mean, like, but it's same problem. So we, based on our new strategic planning, at least we define ourselves with 3 roles on how to um, address those challenges. So the first ones, we act as a policy bridge on how translating the community experience into the national policy advocacy and subnational advocacy, including zero cities, reuse, EPR, and more upstreams and midstream solutions. We have a lot of experience, best practices that can be translated into a policy regulations. That's uh, most of our members do that, still do that, and I think it can be more strengthened in the coming year. And the second ones, we cannot work together, so we act as an alliance builder, connecting grassroots groups, technical experts, and national platforms, so we can move together, not in silos. As I said earlier, even though we have a difference in how we do our own respective organization, when we are in an alliance consortiums, we will have we will find a lot of commonalities that we can move together, we work together. And also, it's also important that us as an alliance to be knowledge and narrative hub, we produce a lot of evidence, a lot of studies, a lot of best practices, publications that can we use that to elevate our narrative, and also to influence the policymaker in national, subnational, even in the regional and global movements. Arpita said earlier during my introductions that also part of the plastic treaty negotiation. That's our experience on the ground. It's very helpful for me to shape the narrative, to shape the policy brief that we created uh, to be delivered to the policymaker. So I think ASB's roles here is not to replace the local initiative, the local champions, but to amplify, to connect, to protect them, and how to use these knowledges to raise the voice of the civil society into a systemic change.
Brilliant. And on the question of talking about publications and regulation, I have with me one of the publications that the Alliance has helped produce, and this is excellent work. I'm just wondering, given that this work has not been easy and it does require investment of time, research, and Ryan, you did talk about the number of publications that you all produce. Could you tell everyone who's listening who wants to do more policy research, and it would be remiss if I don't ask this question as the policy officer with Asia Pacific Gaia, how much effort and time goes into this? And one part is just producing this work and concluding it and coming out with recommendations, and working across groups in the alliance. You mentioned 9 groups are part of your alliance, but then how do you deliver it to your governments, different institutions? What is that whole cycle for this work look like?
Oh, the publications that you showed to the audience published in 2022. I think we started to design the publication since 2020. So it took more than 1 year. I mean, like to finally deliver the baby. It's a very hard work. It's also, I mean, like, since the documents, most of our document is very related to the policy work. So I think there should be a process outside the desk. We need a consultation with the governments, both national and the subnational. We need to also consult with impacted actors, like, for example, for the single-use plastic bans, we need to also consult with the retailers, to the hotel, restaurant, cafes, on how we can operationalize the policies when they come into force. So it took us a village for real to publish that publications. And actually there are an updated versions of the publication that just launched last week, which also almost 2 years in the making. We haven't have the English version yet. Soon I will share you, but it's well, in Indonesian version, it's 100 pages, and we have a more updated policy analysis in the subnational. We have more updated informations, the current status of the single-use plastics implementations in some cities in Indonesia. So this publication is very important. I mean, like, we need to make time. We need to put it in our fundraising proposals. We need to put it in our daily jobs on how to do the deep work. I mean, like, yes, we do the campaign, we do the protests, but that's not enough. We need more other work that it's really shifted the system change. We need that so we can use it to promote us to the stakeholders, the governments, even the corporations that we do the work, that we are not seen as activists. I mean, like sometimes if you someone hear about activists, just like, yeah, you do the protest. No, no need intellectual um, uh, perspective sides, but it's wrong. I mean, like, we do have the expertise, and one of the things to show them our expertise is through the publication. So I think after we joined Gaia, Breakthrough from Plastics, we learned a lot from you guys and other members, that this publication, this showcase is very important, um, to showcase ourselves, to prove ourselves that we are the right actors in these sectors.
Thanks, Ryan, for sharing that. And I think that last little bit you said about showing that you are the right actors for this, I'd like to ask as a last question, how do you see your alliance and all of the great people in your work? How do you see everything moving forward in ASWI? What is your vision? What is your zero waste vision?
Well, we can put everything we want to. I mean, like, the last strategic meeting for the 10 years, for the next 10 years is quite ambitious. But I mean, like, we cannot work by ourselves. I mean, like, yes, we are consist of experienced NGOs that's been around for 3 decades, but at the end of the day, we need a policymaker on how to enabling the systems, how to accelerate the systems. We are only one part of the stakeholders. There are a lot of people that we need to influence, and one of them is the government, to really change the current waste management systems. Like it or not, I mean, like, they are the one who are responsible for the waste management. So, I mean, like, yes, we're still facing the plastic pollutions, the landfill fires, the methane emissions. Um, every day it's another issue, the black carbons, superpollutants. We didn't talk about this 10 years ago, but now it happens now. So, um, but we see at the same time, we also see a growing momentum that makes me hopeful for the next decade. There are cities piling source separations and reuse in everywhere, not only in Indonesia but also in other countries in our regions. There are stronger public awareness. They said the Gen Z is more conscious, eco-conscious than my generation. So I think it's kind of hopeful that we will get there. We will get what we want, the zero waste world. And also, there are I since very involved in the plastic treaty negotiations and connect with other countries, I see that there's a policy windows that we can use to push our narratives on how to push the reuse and redesign in the EPR framework, on how to push the climate commitments, and how to push the circular economy roadmaps. And I see that everywhere, and I think that we need to use that momentum, and so we cannot. Um, we identify there's some missed opportunities, that there's those moments that got away, and since we identify that, I think it's we need to make sure that there are no missed opportunities in the future. So our visions, I mean, I believe it's not only us, but also all of us here in the room, that we want to have a zero waste world. We need to put waste prevention first. We need to scale reuse and refill systems. We need to strengthen organic waste management, and also the most important on how to make this is like this just waste management system is the recognize of waste pickers and informal workers' role in our work. So I think I want to be optimistic about this, but we need more hard work to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Ryan. And with that, we'll move to our next guest, Mr. Lam Chunghwa, coordinator of Gabungan Anti-Incinerator Kebangsaan, or GAIK. Mr. Lam, it's great to see you again. And
Yes,
thank you for all the great work you've been doing in Malaysia with GAIK over the years. I'd like to start with the quick question of, could you introduce GAIK? How did it start? And what have you been doing in the past years since it was founded?
guy, in local language is Gabungan Anti-Incinerator Kebangsaan means that a National Anti-Incinerator Alliance. And it was started in 2014, and because of several places were selected by the government to build mega incinerators. Then some local people they gang up together, then decided not say no to this waste incinerator. And after that, several programs and also, the kind of local movements were launched and also will carry out. If you know Malaysia, then campaigns launch and also carry out in Kuala Lumpur, capital of Malaysia, as well as Cameron Highland and Johor Bahru, and also Bangkok. So these are the areas selected by the government. And regarding to the issue, according to our government, we are envisioning to build 18 mega incinerator in each state, and each state will have around at least 1 to 2 mega incinerators. Why? Because according to our government, they say that since our waste, municipal waste are piling up, and they don't have extra capacity to dispose all those extra waste, and the fastest and also the most economic way to dispose it is to build incinerator. And they thought that not only that, and also waste to energy plant can also convert waste to wealth. This according to their philosophy and also their analogy, but to which we don't agree with. And but we try to give an alternative solution and also alternative, argument to the government that building a lot of incinerators, they won't help to solve your waste issue. It is because this lie in the people, the problems lie in the people as well as lie in the government also. And firstly, the government has to formulate, the overall policy to guide and also to manage and also to direct uh, various stakeholders of the waste management players to propose different types of waste solution. Waste to energy plants is only one of the solutions. It cannot be treated and also regarded as the most powerful as well as the most efficient solution. I mean, in our mind, we thought that yes, zero waste shouldn't be neglected, and also zero waste is one of the important methods should be adopted not only by the government as well as the people. And the government should also promote the implementation of zero waste in all sectors at all levels of the society. But unfortunately, in Malaysia, there are a lot of discussion about the waste to energy solution other than zero waste. In Malaysia, we do have one Zero Waste Malaysia NGO, which is dedicated to promote zero waste, but it gained little attraction and also little interest from local people as well as the government, because they are deemed as a kind of very very marginalized society, because the government think that this is not an important issue, and the most important issue for them is they need to dispose all the waste as soon as possible. if they use zero waste method, then they have to, firstly they have to educate people, then they have to prepare some local facilities for zero waste campaign. Then they have to spend years to see the results. And for the politicians as well as those executive branch, they thought that they don't have time to see the results, and they don't have any also faith in zero waste also. We Me myself got involved in several campaigns, and we talked to several local executive members or even local ministers also, and they keep on telling us that zero waste is not going to work, and they told us that zero waste is only a myth. Don't ever think that zero waste is a solution. And in this regard, they think that zero waste is only kind of propaganda. It's not going to solve the real world issue. So, and we have heard this a lot from the government and also from the executive, but we beg to differ, and we try to argue that no, this is not the case, because you yourself don't take it seriously. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work, because you don't look into the real effect of zero waste, but you only focus too much on waste to energy plant, because you are, influenced by those WTE or BEs, as well as by a lot of kind of misinformation, perhaps, because somehow those lobbies, they pay a lot of advertisement, and then through this advertisement, a lot of policymakers, they were influenced, and they got kind of one-sided information. So they always tend to neglect and also ignore our calling and also our appeal. So we think that we, as a guide and also kind of a local campaign mover, we wanted to promote zero waste, and also try to convince that if you really practice it and implement it seriously, definitely you will see the result. Not in short term, definitely in the long term you will see the result. You will see waste be disposed more cleaner, as well as more healthier also, and not only can take care of those local needs, as well as you can also get more people involved in waste management issue. If you only introduce a WTE or waste to energy operator, only those operators get benefited from this kind of a big project. Local, they will not get benefited because they don't have chance. They don't have any opportunity to take part of it, because local councils, they will only allocate those big projects to those operators. So when we talk a lot about waste to wealth, we locals, they cannot get benefited from this project, from this campaign. So what do you mean about waste to wealth? You are going to enrich, those waste to energy operators, rather than enriching, local people. Local people, they don't get anything. And also by burning a lot of those rubbish, actually those are not rubbish, they are displaced resources. They're only displaced resources. If you put at the right place and in the right time, then definitely it will bring more benefits than bringing hazardous effect. So they have to change our mindset, and also the government and also the local council, they have to change the mindset also. Some resources, they are not rubbish, they are only displaced. You have to set up certain mechanism to redistribute displaced resources to needy, and to other maybe NGOs or other societies. So these are the from the policy side that the government has to think of. But unfortunately, our local government as well as our federal government, they don't think in this line. They don't have a very proper, kind of national waste management strategy, as well as a plan. They always keep on telling us that only WTE is the solution, and which we